you.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Robby.
Hi.
Before we get to know all the practical advice and so on, can you kind of like quickly share how you went from IT to journalist to founding PR Player?
Yeah, sure. I actually went to school trying to become a game designer, but this was 2005, 2008, so there was not really an education for it.
I feel you.
So I went to Mechelen, did EMD, which was interactive multimedia design, but there was not a lot of interactive stuff, not a lot of multimedia, and certainly not a lot of design. But after 3 years, I apparently did learn enough to make some games in Flash, and actually helped Larian with some mini games for Catnet Kick 2, which is a game that was available in stores at that moment, so yay. After about 3-4 months, that dried up, and then I started doing some Drupal websites that later evolved into the European Commission asking like, hey, do you know SharePoint? I didn't, but during my interview I just replaced the word SharePoint by Drupal and they fell for it. Fast forward 10 years of giving IT support to mostly elderly people at the European Commission, which did teach me patience, a valuable skill for PR. And because I was bored and had a lot of free time during office hours, I used that time to start writing reviews. I also started doing interviews with Belgian developers, putting that on websites like This Gen Gaming. And apparently someone at Kronos, the company I've been working for since 2008, was like, oh, you're active in the games industry. I wouldn't have called it active at that point, but I was doing interviews. And he said, like, we're setting up a new event, OneUp, and we're also starting a Belgian game publisher, Kronos Interactive. So I was like, do you want to get involved on that? Sure. I signed the contract the very next day, I think. Like, sure, getting paid for working in the games industry again was my goal. So 2 years of managing and organizing OneUp conference, then afterwards social media mostly for Kronos Interactive games, and then in 2022 I started Pirate PR, basically using the soft skills I acquired the years before, but not really training for this specifically, but apparently they still all apply. And now that's where we are here.
So overall, you're self-made out of logic, I would say.
Yeah, common sense is the superpower that I've used. That's how I would say it.
So PR slogan is like, your audience. What does it really mean to you?
Yeah.
How does it like shape the way you work with devs?
Yeah, the we are your audience actually doesn't apply to developers or to, let's say, basically we are the gamers. I'm a gamer myself, first and foremost. I've been a journalist for many years. I've been a content creator for many years. So I've kind of learned the things of what to do and what not to do when approaching those people, and I've been applying that. The same with all of those tools I'm using. I'm using tools like Keymailer, Press Engine, Lurkit, Woovit. Those are all things where you distribute keys, but it's so valuable that I've been on the other end of it first. So I know how to approach them, how to get into the spotlight, what to avoid, and that's really been useful.
Mm-hmm. And is there a thing like a silver bullet for indie game marketing, or like something, a universal truth about it?
Yes, make good games. I've recently had a friend say like 0 times 100 is still 0. So if you have a good game, PR and marketing amplifies that effect and amplifies the reach of it. But if you don't have a unique game, something that nobody's made before, something that doesn't really appeal to people, then your marketing can be the best in the world, but you're not going to be able to sell many more games. So the universal truth is make games that market well. Yeah.
Yeah, you said before that marketing is often like left at the last minute,
yes,
or done in a reaction rather than being proactive on it.
Yeah.
Based on your experience, what is the right time for a small studio to start to think about marketing?
The worst time would be like a week before the game launches, which is the most common email I get, like, hey, I'm launching my game, can you help? When is it launching? About 6 days from now. Ideally, there are different marketing beats you can do. It differs per game. You have games where you can stretch your marketing efforts for years. Most indie games don't fall into that category. And your first marketing beat is probably going to be announcing your game. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't do that too soon, not with a press release at least, but around the same time you're ready to publish your Steam page or your other store pages, and you have screenshots, trailers, basically a vertical slice level of the game where you can say this is what it will be. That's also the same time where you should be doing PR and marketing, and then press releases. Social media is a different beast entirely because you can basically also use social media to pitch your game before it's done and see like, are people interested in this? So that goes a little before.
Since you were talking about like opening the Steam page and so on,
Yeah.
when should the game be announced? Is there like maybe a few months before or a year before?
Again, it differs. I would avoid announcing your game if you know that it's going to take 6 more years to work on it, because it's really difficult to keep that hype going unless you're a AAA studio with lots of marketing budget and you can keep getting new beats and new assets. But for an a small indie game, I think like usually it's about a year. And sometimes that announcement doesn't have to be right when the Steam page gets launched. We often do it, even the Steam page has been online for like 6 months, 8 months already, but nobody actually knew about the game. And you can still announce it and fake your way through it. That's even happened a few times where we just asked people like, take your trailers offline, make a little bit better trailers, upload them again, put them on unlisted, and I just pitch it to GameSpot, IGN, and they run with it and go like, okay, new game. That works. Yeah.
Is there some early step that the team can take before even announcing their game?
Testing against as large an audience as you can if your game is viable, like posting on social media. We're in June almost. On the 6th of June, there's like Pitch Your Game on Twitter. I've always been a big fan of that one, to like just with just a screenshot and a tweet sized, like, this is my game. You can actually test and see, is this something people are interested in, just by the number of likes and views it gets.
And how is it important to define your target audience before even building your marketing assets? Like, is that something you look at, the persona, or?
Personally, I'm usually not involved at that step. It's more of a game design step, like what game are we making and why. The thing where I'm usually involved in is when people are pitching their game to me to work for it, marketing-wise. And I'm like, let's take a few steps back, because what are we marketing here? Like, I don't see the appeal, or how am I going to sell this to other people if I myself don't see why this game is good or cool, or why I would want to play it? So that's, yeah, usually a moment where we have to take a few steps back, or when I just have to say, sorry, I can't work on this because I wouldn't be of much extra value.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that the game is bad, it's more that sometimes it's hard to market.
Yeah, exactly. There are, or not unique enough. There are perfectly fine games, but if I see it and other players as well, and they go, I've seen this before, or it's just very, very similar to something else, then you got to have to ask yourself the question of how many people are going to buy it.
Okay. The Steam wishlist, they're often kind of like seen as a currency for indie games. You shared a lot of smart strategy for that. What are the top 2 or 3 tactics you have to actually move the needle on the wishlist?
Events, preferably the one that Steam does themselves. Steam Next Fest, obviously, but you only get one of those. But they also have thematic events that you can participate in before your game launches, after your game launches, when you're doing a big discount. So you basically should be aware of all of those events Steam does themselves. Then you have a few events that are organized by third parties, but they can still be featured on the front page, like we managed to do for the Belgian Game Awards last year. There was something in the London UK Fest just a few weeks ago, and they also got front page on Steam, but usually just regional. And then you also have some, like the Summer of Games is appearing, the Game Awards, like really big international events. If you can get into those, that's really good, obviously, but you need to apply for all of them.
That is different from the Steam Fest.
Yes.
I mean, you can do both, or even like all of them.
People usually ask me, like, does being in one event exclude me for another? Because sometimes they overlap. The answer is no, because Steam is smart enough to put the biggest event on the top of your page and also market that one the most. And it's just any event that will accept you is usually a good event to submit for. And the more it gets shown on the homepage of Steam, the better, of course.
All right.
And then a second big thing would be getting players to play your game, obviously. But if that's still too soon, getting your trailer shared by places like IGN, GameSpot, contacting press even before your game is playable, but pitching it directly and telling them like, hey, I'm making this really cool thing. Do you want to be the first to write about it? That also really works.
All right. You were talking about like playing the game. I know 20 years ago it was pretty often that everybody had a demo for their game, and then it completely dried out. You couldn't see any more demos, and now it's kind of like coming back in force. Like, what is the role of a demo for building interest into a game?
First of all, people can decide for themselves if they like the game or not, but also press. Like if I'm sending out a press release, I always send it out to both press and creators. And press, they can do something with it. They can copy paste the press release, or they can write their own impressions on what they think the game will be in a written form. But those creators, they basically stop at the, okay, this is cool. Let's put it in the back of my mind for when I can play it. And that demo is the first time they can play it and start creating content for it. So it's really important. Everybody is familiar with Steam demos because it's pretty easy to set up. They keep forgetting about console demos because it's a lot of artwork. Like you have to go through a lot check separately for Switch, for PlayStation, for Xbox. But I've seen enough data to see that just launching your demo, even after a game has already been out for quite some time, can still boost sales because those platforms put demos on the free-to-play section, even though it's just a demo. But that can drive eyes to your game that you didn't get before.
So basically, demos are a bit like the Game Pass. Also, it kind of like put the light on your game.
Yeah. A small aside though is that your demo should be good to convince the players, but also not too good. I've had 2 games where I worked on where the free demo was actually the best part of the entire game, and then asking people to pay for just more of the same can be a hard ask. So you have to also carefully consider what moment of your game you put as a demo.
It's also the duration of the demo. If the demo is like 5 hours, it's kind of...
It's still okay if it's pre-launch. Like a famous example is Balatro. People played that for 100 hours and more, the demo. But the dev did put down the demo because people could just keep playing the demo otherwise, and he wanted people to buy the game. So if you're making a roguelike deck builder, maybe consider taking down your demo.
Do you have, I don't know if you're allowed to share that, but do you have like some example of game you worked on that benefited from like that to bump their wishlist?
Yeah, almost all of them. Steam Next Fest has always been an amplifier for us. Like you get, in a lot of cases, you can do like times 1.5, like 50% more of your existing wish list. You can grow them on top during Steam Next Fest if you're doing a good campaign. And when I mentioned that demo on consoles earlier, there was one game called Brock the Alligator, the Investigator, or something on PlayStation, and him launching the game on PlayStation actually gave him a huge bump in sales on the platform.
Right. You also have like a lot of articles. By the way, if you can scan that code, you will access to the treasure trove, and it's full of a lot of nice tutorial and how to do marketing, I would say.
And if you hack into my computer, there's about 50 of those articles in draft that I still need to publish if I find the time.
But so you have like a written article about how to make a good press kit. Like, usually what are the big mistakes that you see in press kit? Because you've been on both ends as a journalist and as...
The biggest mistake is not having one. I see a lot of developers, and I'm live checking on their computer and asking them like, hey, can you give me this asset? And I see them going on Google to find their own old assets from like 2 years ago. And like, dude, why don't you have a drive you can easily access? So for your own sake, have an easily accessible Google Drive or something. But that's maybe not the best press kit because it's not visual. Everybody names their folders different. People are lazy. They don't want to click through folders just to find what they're looking for. So my advice is to have like a one-pager where you have your key art, your logos, your screenshots, GIFs, your best trailer, all front and center, just scrollable, so they can quickly decide, is this for me or not, the game? And you can still link to that Google Drive. If you really want to link to that 4K video or the 15 megabyte PNG screenshots or something, you can still link to it. But having that one pager with all of the information, your price, what platforms it's releasing on, when it's releasing, who's making it, what's the game about, your screenshots, it's really vital to have. Also for yourself, like you're submitting for events, and then when sometimes I see developers like, what's my game? And they're just typing from memory. It's like, if you have your press kit, you could copy paste that easily.
I notice also sometimes journalists that just copy paste the press kit into an article and that's it.
Yeah, and the press release as well. Yeah. You're totally fine with that. Better to have them copy paste it than to invent things or to just like, hey, ChatGPT, rename this for me. And then suddenly you're reading things like, this isn't in the game. So yeah.
Is there any tool or template that you would recommend for press kits?
For press kits, yes. So there's 3 I recommend. There's the age-old Do press kit from Rami Ismail that still works, and you can embed it on your website. There's Press Kitty or Impress Games. That's also a similar one where you do it online. And the one I'm personally using is just a Notion website, basically, but I made a template out of it. That's also on the treasure trove, by the way. And you can just copy paste any of our press kits, and then it's just a find and replace of all of the key assets. And hopefully you don't forget one, or you're advertising one of our older games.
And so, kind of similar, but more into the video side. When it comes to trailer,
Yes.
what are the most common pitfalls that developers should avoid?
They overvalue how important people think their own studio name is. So lots of trailers pitch to me with don't start from a fade out from black. That's the first thing. Or if you have to do this on social media platforms like TikTok, Twitter, Blue Sky, and whatever, insert like a few milliseconds of your call to action slide first. Otherwise, you'll have a big black thumbnail, which is not interesting. And then if you first start with Made in Unreal or this is the studio name, just skip all of that stuff and go straight into the action.
So like the first few seconds of the trailer should already be video of the game.
And if you have no idea of how to make a trailer, like usually the approach I recommend to people, it doesn't work for every game, is the Metroidvania approach, where they drop you in the Metroidvania often drops you at the start of the game with all of your abilities unlocked, making you very powerful. And then gradually you have memory loss or something happens, you have to regain them. You can do the same with the trailer where you start with your best gameplay, whatever, and then you show how you gain it over the game, but those very first seconds are important to convince people.
And also, I think half of the video is as well where the screenshot is taken for the social media.
The screenshot? No, it's the very first seconds.
Black screen.
If you're on Twitter and you're paying for that Twitter Blue thing or something, you can still go into your library of video assets and you can upload a thumbnail. But
is there
kind of trick?
All right. Is there any warning sign that a marketing plan isn't working?
Yeah, and that's also the reason why with Pirate PR I have these different packages that we work with. And usually before I work with like a really big client for months on end, I always want to send out the very first press release, because if that just falls flat and I'm doing the same efforts as for any other game, but I'm seeing no pickup whatsoever, then I also don't feel good asking people for more money and keep working on the title. And that's usually also like a back to the drawing board moment of how do we make this game more marketable? And the wish lists are usually an indicator for that, but also just how much coverage you find. Like if there's 0 big websites talking about your game after like 1 or 2 press releases, then something is clearly wrong.
And what is your advice when a dev feel that they are kind of like shooting in the void and like not moving the needle in a way?
It's difficult. Sometimes it takes talking about your game in a different way. Sometimes it's just a lost cause and it's kill your darlings and maybe work on something else or insert something totally different, making your game totally different, which is nothing anybody wants to hear, sadly, but it happens a lot. It can also be the marketing materials, like the trailer isn't good or the screenshots aren't good, and you have to just A/B test the hell out of it and make changes and see, does anything I've been doing change anything at all?
Can you explain what is an A/B test?
So for example, on Steam, you could have the key arts being one of them, and then keeping that up for like 3 weeks, and then after 3 weeks changing to a new one, and then seeing if that drove the amount of people who clicked it from just seeing it. And you can do the same for advertisements on Reddit. You can have like 5 different advertisements, which is copies or mixes of trailers, screenshots, GIFs, or whatever, and then also the copywriting, and you make like a mix of 20 different ones, and you measure every week or every month like which one is performing best, and then you keep investing more and more money in the one that does better.
Yeah, so it's
it's boring also. It's work I don't like doing.
You also have been very vocal about key scammer, and like what should developer watch out before like sending the press release or some influencer to some keys and such?
The talk itself for that would be like half an hour, so that's also a good article to go through, because there's many scams. There's people contacting you by email, scamming you for fake press, where they are pretending to be someone else and they just changed their email. There are the ones where the email verifies for their YouTube or their Twitch account, but then the content itself is fake, like there's boosted numbers, you'll see fake comments. The best check is still a manual human check, like just watch that video and see, like, does this come across as genuine? Read the comments, are these people real people commenting on it? On Twitch, for example, you'll see dozens of requests from people who just have an hour of your game, no commentary, but Twitch is a platform where you're expecting to see someone's face and hearing their voice over. And it's just, if it's just gameplay and you see like comments and then you click on the next person requesting it, it just happens on the same second as the other request. And it's the same people commenting, and you just start seeing patterns. So that's also the reason why I can't just make a list of these people you can't trust, because they change their handles, their emails all the time. It's better to train yourself to recognize them.
Can you also maybe block the output, like for example, blocking your game on G2A?
Yes, so if somebody is selling your game, you can contact them and have it removed and say, like, there is no way this, but this only works before the game is out. But if keys are being sold for your game before the release of the game, you can contact Kingwing, G2A, etc., and you can say, remove this, prevent any other games from being added. The only downside is they're not really playing ball, where you say, like, can you also tell me who uploaded the key or who's selling it, so you can go behind them. The best way for that is to just buy it yourself
and keep track of it.
Keep track of in a spreadsheet of who you sent the code and via what and via which platform, and then just blacklist the hell out of it. And if you want, you can make them walk the plank publicly on Twitter as well and go like, this guy.
But that's why I'm asking the question, because you've been doing that quite often.
Yes, I enjoy it as well.
Some developer were saying that you could also use geolocation on the keys.
How do you mean?
Sorry, not geolocation, but you can have like keys for the Middle East, keys for the Asia and such. Could be something interesting.
For Steam, you mean?
Yeah.
Not that I know.
Okay.
You can always do check if a key has been sent to somebody if they redeemed it in the backend. But that's always not an indicator, because sometimes you can send the key to a legit creator and they will wait weeks to redeem it, and then just like canceling it because they didn't redeem it yet is not really good. I wouldn't do that. Yeah. It's better to just, well, like I said, if you see a key being sold from your game, just buy it yourself, track down who did it, blacklist them, and then you can even get a refund from those key seller sites and say, like, this was my own key, I bought back.
All right. No, the screen turned off there.
Oh, my leg. There we go.
And it's back. So before jumping to QA, to Q&A, sorry, if you that's another thing you've been doing, actually, QA.
QA, for free on all of our games.
If you could give like an advice for indie dev that are just starting out, something they should remember from day one, what could it be?
I don't want to fall into repetition of just making good games, and it's also lazy on my end, but get your game out there as much as you can. The cases where I worked on, where the marketing and PR I did had the best efforts, were usually the ones where the developer was doing equal efforts in tandem. Like, the best content creator for their own game was the developer. He's super active on social media. Like, recent examples were Schim last year from the Dutch people I worked with. This year, Ruffy and the Riverside, we hired someone to do the social media for him. And after like 3 weeks, we were like, the developer is doing a better job at it. He knows his game. He loves doing it. He's super engaging. And whenever somebody replies, he will reply back. And then just being that involved really helps, because when I'm doing my efforts, it amplifies that as well. It's like a team up.
But it takes a lot of time then.
It takes a lot of time, and not every studio is big enough to do that, or not every person is fit to do that. But that's like, if you can be your own best content creator, that's like one of the biggest advices I can give you that works out well.
All right. Okay. Now I think we can go into QA. So the way we're going to proceed, like, people can ask questions, and I'm going to repeat it, I guess, for the mic. So yeah, if anybody have a question there.
We have a lot of games now where the marketing also happens through content creators, where they're making videos out of it. A lot of games are like made to be able to make good content out of it. Does your job change for those type of games, where you don't have to actively make the content, but encourage people to make content?
It doesn't really change.
It's kind of hard to be repeating that, but go on.
Yeah, so to repeat the question, like, what can you do? Because the nature of PR is changing and evolving a little bit more from a press focus to a creator focus. We have to make it easier for people to create content. So that's why the demo is becoming more important than ever. You can also think about how people will engage with your content. Like recently, I've been working on Please Touch the Artwork 2 again for the Switch release. It's a hidden object game. And I made a transparent PNG grid that I just sent to people, like basically like a Battlefield thing where you have like A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if they put that as an overlay on their live stream, they can actually ask like, hey chat, I'm looking for object number 7, and they can go like B5. Ah, thanks. So you can think about that kind of stuff. And also in the game yourself, like you can maybe have streamer modes, which could be if you have licensed music, have a way to turn that off or replace it with unlicensed music. If your game is very UI heavy, but maybe consider having like a streamer mode where it's a little bit less UI heavy, so the streamer can still find the location to put their own face or stuff, that can help as well.
Do you see studios use more and more AI to generate their content, generate their posts on platforms? Or?
So our studio using AI to generate their marketing bits.
Yeah, and the copywriting on the Steam page. That offer I said earlier, where I say the first press release I want to send out for somebody, I usually want to do it as cheap as possible, just to see like, can I promise them a lot of return? So I keep the value, the cost as low as possible. And that one offer I have is basically you write a press release, I'll still do some tweaks on it, and then I'll send it out to my list. And that's basically the biggest asset that they don't have, is a list of contacts to send it to. So I'll keep their press release and I'll make some small edits. But the keynote is there. I want to receive their press release, not hey ChatGPT, write a press release about my game. And then I get, here's my press release and it's full of M dashes. And every game is an immersive experience. And I'm like,
yeah, there is a lot of pattern you can recognize on AI.
Yeah, or just like people talking about their own game, going like a pirate game. I worked on recently sail from island to island and explore. I played your game. There's one island. There's no sailing in it. Ah, yeah, right. That's probably some leftover copywriting from ChatGPT. So yeah, don't do that. And then on the flip side of things is also we're sending out review keys to people. We're sending out press releases, and I'm seeing more and more press also just resorting to using AI to write press releases, insofar as that they didn't even double check, and then AI changed the name of the game even.
Hello.
Hi.
I was wondering if you've worked or had experience with games that are not on Steam.
Yes.
On Steam, but for example, things that have physical elements like a first controllers or board games with digital elements and stuff like this. And if it overlaps with your.
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so if I worked on physical games or not per se entertainment games on Steam, not so much personally. I did help, for example, Realm Architect recently, which was a tabletop RPG thing, but they also have a Steam page and they also have an online version of it. It's a different audience. If I'm sending out a press release aimed at, for example, tabletop RPG people, that's only going to reach that smaller subsection of press. And not everybody in the world of my contact list is going to be interested in it. And for myself, it's also really important for every contact in my list to be categorized like cozy only or horror only. Those are two different games entirely. So it's really important to send the right press release to the right person, or otherwise they will just go unsubscribe. And doing the typical PR approach for physical games is going to be much harder, I think. I think in that case, you're better off doing like one-on-one outreach with people who can physically come to test it. So if you're making something in Belgium, you're already limited a little bit to Belgium, or if you're bringing it to Gamescom, you're limited to the people checking it out at Gamescom. But how to get international people to have a physical test object in their hands and write about it is going to be a big challenge, I fear. I hope that answered the question a little bit. Okay.
I wanted to ask your opinion. So recently, Jason Delarocca had this talk about Inception Publishing, where he recommends like game devs to focus first on making, for example, the fastest possible to make a trailer of your game.
Yeah.
Like only make the assets and prototype whatever is necessary to make your game trailer, and then go out of that and test already would your game be worth making it because it would be marketable. But do you have any comments or opinions?
I also believe in that, and it's actually another but more expensive way to do that thing where I said like, hey, try pitch your game, because there you can have a screenshot and a single tweet. Making a trailer is a much more expensive and longer process to test if your game is valuable or not. But we did it just like last year with a game called Parkour, perfect title. Whoa, did I just do a Trump movement? Perfect title. It's huge. No, so if you have a game where you think there's like viral potential, but you want to test it first, you could make that trailer first without any gameplay. So last year I did that for Parkour. It was a game where you play as a dog doing parkour. It's basically Metal Gear Solid-like, but you play as a canine, which is really cool. I pitched this to IGN, and it was the quickest yes I've ever gotten from them. Like, sure. Next day, they were already writing an article on it, putting it on their main YouTube channel. And this was on a Friday before Gamescom, and by Monday, there was 7,000 wishlists already on a weekend for just that one trailer. And that kept amplifying it, and it gave the developer leverage to go and talk to publishers and say, like, here's what we achieved in just like 3-4 days. Can you imagine with more marketing what we can do? But they still needed to make the actual game. It was mostly cinematic stuff.
Maybe I have a question also, because you've been talking about IGN and other press websites. They are kind of like losing grip. Are they still relevant now, or?
They are still relevant, but the amount of sites that are relevant is reducing because they're all being bought by the same big ones, and then they fire people, and suddenly your list of contacts is shrinking. So it's sad. We need to constantly be evolving. It's evolving in more to content creator, video content format.
IGN is actually more interesting now for the YouTube page than the.
Yes, this is true. Yeah. If you check views, you'll think that they'll get a lot of views, but if you check, like, hey, they published my trailer, or hey, they wrote an article on me, the trailer publishing gets you more wish lists because people are more directly going to watch a trailer and then think, oh, I'll put this on my wish list. Then they are going to actively read an article, because the time when people start reading articles is mostly closer to your game to verify, like, should I buy this or not? And it's reducing all of the time the amount of trustworthy websites. There's a decline there, sadly.
Anybody with question? Yes.
What would be like the minimum or optimal time between like your PR beats, like the announcement PR, the demo PR, your release date PR? So like a time that is like too short for PR?
Again, don't do it a week before the launch. The golden thing I've been working with, but it's not always possible, is usually a year. Like, announcing the game is usually a year before the game comes out, give or take a few months. Then you have to evaluate, like, when I'm going to release my demo. That can be a next marketing beat separate of Steam Next Fest. Then when it participates in Steam Next Fest, that could be another marketing beat. Every event you submit for and you get into could also be a marketing beat, but usually it doesn't require a press release alongside of it, because that event being on a big showcase is already the beat in itself. And then for releasing your game, I like to work back like 4 to 5 weeks before the game comes out to refresh everybody's memory and to lock in the date. So like early on, you can say it's coming next year, or you can then start homing in on summer next year, or that quarter, or that month. But the actual date, you have to be pretty sure and try not to move the release date too often. But always keep in mind that those kinds of announcements have value as well when pitching to press, or pitching to like IGN or a showcase like Future Games Show, the Summer Games Show. Letting them announce it for you has value. And they will always ask, like, what are you sharing this time that's unique from the last time? So don't just push that yourself. If you think you have a shot at a big event, try and negotiate with them first that they can do it for you.
And like, what would like the time between like your announcement PR and your demo PR, like the time between, because like I keep pushing for announcements, PR beats further away, but it's coming closer to the planned demo PR beats. So, like,
in that case, you can overlap it. I've done a lot of announcement PRs where it's basically
like two beats. Like, I know it will not be 200%, but like 150% more.
Not always. Some games really benefit so much from that demo that announcing it alongside with that demo is really valuable. Beginning of this year, I had a game called Katanaut, and the demo was like launched the day before our press release. He launched the Steam page already, I think, end of last year. but this was the first official marketing we were doing for it, also other than him paying some Reddit ads and us just launching that official announcement of the game, even though it was already out there. Alongside the demo, suddenly got people playing. It got a few big creators playing it. IGN put it on their main channel. And then after those big creators started playing it, we also saw more press starting to write about it after the fact because people were playing it.
I think combining is not that will not have less effect
No.
than two.
No.
3 months in between.
Sometimes it could be because that if you're waiting too long, again, going back to that game Parkour I mentioned, they didn't have a demo, they didn't have a playable build yet, but just them teasing their game had value.
Yeah.
Like they had 400,000 views on just that one trailer alone where they're teasing their game. If you have a game like that, it will work. Another popular example from last year was Zoocosis. It's horror, that gets people. There's a giraffe walking like a spider under a bridge. Like it's so viral visually that them not posting anything more actually worked in their favor because their 1 minute trailer was being analyzed by like Indian YouTubers and going like, what animals are also going to be in there that we haven't seen yet? But it doesn't work for every game.
Yep.
Have you worked with narrative games, or is it like rely on plot twists or changes that make it hard to market without actually spoiling the experience?
Yes.
Can you repeat the question?
So if I've worked on games where there's a big plot twist or a spoiler, and how do you handle that? I've actually been also on the social media team for a game called Journey for Elysium. Hi, Xavier. And there I was really held back by the team a little, where they said like, no, you can't share these big spoilers in the game. But me as a marketeer was going, but they are the best moments in the game. Visually as well, like the full game was, you start with a little bit of color, then it was a gray game, and at the end suddenly they reintroduced color and a boss fight. There was no boss fights before this, and I was like, I want to show that boss fight. And even though it was a VR game and it didn't do well commercially or get a lot of pickup, just us changing the screenshots on the Steam page and adding those better polished screenshots, we could see a small uptick already, because suddenly you had something more interesting to show versus the middle of the game all of the time. But when you're doing press releases for a narrative game, what we usually do is we work with embargoes. For a game that doesn't have a big narrative focus, you can put that embargo like a few days before and say, just share the full game if you want to. If there is a big plot twist, you can say, play until this moment and no further. And then you, of course, have to also enforce that embargo. And if people go beyond that playable moment, you have to go and slap them on the wrists, make them walk the plank and say, like, please remove it. You're too soon with it. But yeah, you have to carefully curate what they can play. I just recently reviewed a game myself called Expedition 33, which was full of plot spoilers, like Final Fantasy VII level. And they just attached a really large PDF where they said, talk about this and not about this, talk about this and not about this. So yeah, it takes a lot of extra work, and you have to carefully curate what people can share, yes or no.
Right, so if you could even think of like huge moments, but that's not sports, or at least you have a visual that's better.
Yeah, and then avoid saying things like play the first half of the game, because the first half is going to be different from a player who plays fast versus a player who plays slowly. They don't know what that half is. So my tip there is include a screenshot of the moment of no return, or like not beyond this or something, and put a screenshot there.
Actually, how do you avoid to have people that are streaming your game that would spoil the entire game for a narrative game?
You can't avoid it, but you can ask them to please kindly remove it after they've broken the embargo.
Mm-hmm.
And if then they don't do it, there are steps you can try and take with YouTube, but I didn't have any success with that so far yet. And then other than this, it's putting them on the blacklist and saying like, that's the last key you'll get out of me. If it's a genuine mistake, they will remove it. If it was intentional and they wanted to be the first to share the entire game, then it's probably best to avoid those people the next time.
I got some channel bans out of that from you. Yes.
You know, it seems a lot like getting green. Because like you may have a good game, but like if you have no followers or whatever, you're not being seen, therefore you cannot judge if there's
that's where PR actually comes in. Like if you yourself don't have a channel to talk about your game and you're not getting any traction, that's when you send out a press release, that's when you contact content creators and you rely on other people's networks to share it. If you're not ready to send out a big press release to like everybody in bulk yet, the advice there would be handpick maybe like 5 content creators or something, and promise them like the first access to your game, and say you have free reign to do whatever you want. You are the first 5 people to have access to this, and maybe they will feel privileged enough to get that kind of content that they will be your champions at the start, and then it maybe trickles down or snowballs into better effects later.
Yeah, so it would be a good idea, like for the release of the demo, for example, to like say maybe on my side first announce it.
Yeah.
Just tweet
Yes.
to those 5 people,
Yes.
like a week or 2 in advance. So
Yes.
they can make
What I usually do there for like Steam Next Fest is Steam Next Fest happens. I'm always using the Steam events. There's also other platforms, of course, but it's the most popular one for a reason. You have to have the demo live 10 days before the event happens. That's like a requirement for them. Otherwise, you're not in that press preview that they're sending out to everybody. And then you can go even before that to put your demo public already and send your press release. It always moves up earlier and earlier. Like for the February Steam Next Fest, I was already getting emails as a creator myself at the start of January. But at that point, usually the demo is not live yet, and they're basically asking people in advance, like before we put it public, are you interested in getting a key? Now, fair warning there, the conversion rate is really low. Like if you contact 4,000 people with this, that's a big number, but that's what I did in January. Like 400, 10% of them will say yes, and then another 10% of that 10% will actually do create the content after saying yes. So it's contacting a lot of people, convincing them, and finding the right people for it. And the conversion is low because you're basically asking them, hey, can you do this thing for me at a kind of deadline? Whereas if they just wait for the public demo, they don't have a deadline, they can do whatever they want and when they want. So it's a hard pitch.
Regarding the release of the game also, some games, they are putting a sales like minus 10% or even more time to time. Is it actually useful to do that? Or like, does it...
At launch or whatever?
Yeah, at launch.
You should ask the developers of Deck of Hans. They just launched the game without a sale. There was some people saying, I'm waiting on the first discount for it, but I don't think the 10% is usually what convinces people the most. And it's also not the trigger. Like as soon as you go 20% or more, people get an email for it. So that has value. 10%, not as much.
So you're just losing money as a developer then?
I wouldn't go that far as well, because if you're going and looking at these are the games that are popular upcoming or new and trending, and you're seeing 10 titles with all having a discount and your game is the only one without a discount, maybe they will gravitate towards the one with the biggest discount. So it depends. But if you know that you have a solid fan base that are really excited to play the game, that 10% isn't going to hold them back from buying it. But do realize that what people pay is in direct correlation with how they experience something. So if they paid too much, they are much more likely to leave a negative review, and that can also impact how well a game does at the first few days.
Yeah. Any other questions?
As a game dev, how can I get rich fast?
Quit your job.
No. Get rich fast schemes in game development are usually fast movers. And then I mean, like if you see a genre popping up that everybody wants to play or that it's totally new, let's go with Vampire Survivors recently. If you are the first one to release a game that's really similar and still decent in quality, but it's like really quickly done, then you can still move up on that hype. Basically, that other game is doing the marketing for you. People have played all of the content available in that game. They're wanting to move on to the next game that emulates this. If you can get this really quickly, then that's basically your shortest way to success. Like in Belgium, we had the Bounty of One game made. And I think they were planning to make like a full release of the game, but then Vampire Survivors blew up and they were like, yeah, early access will do. And they published it, and they were one of the first games to be a copy of it, and that sold really well. A lot of games, people are making gambling-inspired games now after Balatro, kind of missing the point of that game, actually. But like roguelikes, then based on roulette machines or something. There was one recently that had a roulette machine where you're standing on a trap door and introducing some like inscription, a level of this is awkward, but playing that roguelike thing. And they also still are cannibalizing that success of that other similar game a little bit.
Right. Any last question?
But be prepared for criticism, because everybody will go like, you're just copying this game. And then you'll just say like, yes, and you walk to the bank with your pocket full of money.
Nobody? Wow, I guess.
I got another question.
Okay.
What's your favorite dish?
Food. Pizza.
Pizza.
All right, I guess we have like all the answer. If you want to contact Robby, I mean, it's pretty well known in Belgium, so it's pretty easy for you to contact him.
It's ahoy@piratepr.com.
And PR also, you will
Yes.
have contact on there.
Actually, they would have, last question. What are your prices? Where the package you talked about?
Yeah, happy to talk about those. Like, not all PR work like this. A lot of PR work with retainers. I'm not a big fan of this. With retainer means like, if a game is coming out in like 6 months, and the bulk of the work that they have to do is in the lead up to the event, the release, and afterwards, they'll still try to make you sign a contract where you start paying like right away after you made contact with them, and then you'll pay a monthly fee, because they're basically keeping their schedule free to work on your game. So I understand that part of it, and I should do that part as well, because sometimes my calendars just get full. But the way I work is with packages, where I just say like, this is what I'll do, and this is the price for it, and I don't deviate from it. If it's a big publisher asking me it, or if it's a small developer, they all get the same price. And then the packages I currently have is like for €500, I send out that press release that somebody else writes. I still do some minor changes, or making a better title, or I'll tell them like, this is missing. But I expect them to provide most of the copywriting. I expect them to have a press kit ready with all of the assets, prepping the trailer. Basically, all of the work is theirs, except for actually sending it out. That's my work, and following it up, and some advice, all of it.
Do you have a guild for that? Like on your website, is there a guide that people can follow up to know exactly what to send you?
I have the pitch deck where the prices are detailed, and then what to actually send me for this actually happens afterwards, where I send them, here is a template, here is my treasure trove article about what should be in your press kit, and I give them this as homework, basically. People like this because it's really cheap. Like for €500, they can send out a press release, where the industry standard is around 2,000 actually. And then for €1,000, I write a press release, and this is usually where a publisher or a developer goes like, here's my Steam page, here are some screenshots, I don't want to be bothered, do everything else yourself. Then I do that, but
So that's package 2, and
that's package 2, that's 1,000. And also I want to be contacted for that one further in advance, because I need to plan out like a full day to prep everything. Sometimes I still need to ask the developer like, this huge thing is missing, you still need to make it. Then I still have to iterate and give feedback on it. So the earlier the better for that one, versus the 500 one. If it's a really, really cool game and they're asking me the day before, I can sometimes still go like, oh, it's tempting. Okay, yes, I'll help. But don't do that. And then it jumps up in price like enormously, where I have a review package that costs €8,000, but that's when I'm working on a game for close to full time for a month and a half to 2 months. I'm sending out review codes. For some games, this is like thousands upon thousands of codes that I have to send, and this is reducing the amount of people asking a code and all saying no to the scammers, to the fake requests, being that filter for those developers. And also doing a lot of cold call outreach, which means instead of contacting people already on my list, I'll go and look at games similar to it on YouTube, on Metacritic, OpenCritic, and contacting the writers or the creators directly and saying like, hey, because you like this game, would you like a code for this? And then just chancing it and hoping that they would cover it, and doing a lot of research per title as well. Yes.
Do you sometimes work for revenue share?
No. I repeat the question, do you sometimes work for revenue share? I've explored this. The problem is it would take me too much time to just investigate the viability of a game, and like at what percentage of revenue share can I earn back the same money I would make that I would do for one of those packages. Plus I would only consider it for that expensive package of 8,000 or more, because otherwise it's just not worth it.
And also you need to chase people afterwards to give you the share.
Yeah, you need to you're not guaranteed that you get your money. They are the only ones with access to their Steam page and their data, so you don't know if they're telling you the truth. Contracts. Don't follow this advice, but I don't work with contracts. I just send people a quote. I say, this is what it's gonna cost. And then after I do the work, I send them the bill. I'm one of the only people who works like this. That's my advantage of working under Kronos. Most other PR will probably ask you a 50% deposit upfront, and then a 50% remainder or something, maybe tied to some KPIs, like we'll only pay 50% if you get us this amount of coverage or this amount of results.
But the good thing of working with you as well, I'm doing his marketing and all, but is that the cost that you are doing is also
the risk is low.
Yeah, but it's also going under the tax shelter because you're Belgian.
Yeah.
And it's also valid for VAF as well.
Yes.
So that's also something you can remove.
Yeah, and if you're working on a co-production game or something with not just a Belgian game but also an external game, companies like VAF, Walimage, government institutions, they will appreciate that some of that money flows back into a Belgian company versus all going to outside providers.
Not only that, but Walimage too.
Yeah, Walimage. I'm one of the few registered people on Walimage. But Walimage, you have to first have received like pre-production funds or another kind of funding, and then you can also ask for promotion support afterwards. So only those games apply. And then you basically make a, hey, do you want to do promotion for me kind of general pitch? And not just me, but other PR companies and providers will see it. And we have to do a counter pitch and say, like, here's what we can do for that amount of money. And then there's an exception accepted. Yeah.
All right. I guess that's it now. So, yeah.
Thank you.